know the answer to your religion as such, but could you tell us ways in how we should implement that within the community to make sure that it's religion over culture?
Yes.
Did everyone hear the question? I think there's something I have to address, and that is Islam never intended on eradicating culture. You know, sometimes we frame these questions as something that we have to choose. Either you choose culture or you choose religion. Islam has no problem with culture as long as these cultural practices are not violating the Sharia. So for example, you go to a center where they mourn for Imam Hussein alayhi salam in a certain way. And then you go to another center and they mourn Imam Hussein alayhi salam in another way. There is no reason why we have to say that we all have to mourn Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the same exact way. Islam has no problem with cultural diversity. Culture becomes a problem when it starts to push people away from Islam, and when that culture starts to become the reason people fall into haram, like what I was mentioning with the issue of marriage. Now listen, people are free to marry who they want. You might want to marry someone from your culture, but if you have a daughter who wants to marry someone else, who's mu'min, who checks off all of the important boxes, then this is an example where culture is becoming an impediment. If you are in a community where in our culture we only have our programs delivered in our native tongue, and you refuse to have any other language spoken, this is an example of alienating people who don't speak that language. You know, I think, the Alkhoei Center is, one of the few mosques that I've seen that, runs multiple programs in parallel. So again, I don't think that we necessarily have to choose culture, choose religion over culture. Sometimes both are fine. You can express religious practices through your own cultural context. It only becomes problematic when it becomes an impediment and it starts pushing people away from Islam. So I think we have to be conscious of that. Islam only wants to eradicate those elements of culture that are destructive. In Arabia, it was cultural for families to marry their female infants alive. That was culture. Islam eradicated that because that's not an acceptable cultural custom, because it doesn't respect human life. So any aspect, another cultural, problem that we have is that in our culture, many cultures, especially Middle Eastern cultures, you go to the masjid, and the masjid is designed with men in mind. Meaning, women, they have their own section, but it's usually the cramped closet, and they might have a TV there. But the men's side is clean. They get to actually see the speaker. So again, this is an example of cultural practices that are becoming an impediment to the education of our systems. So that's where you have to put your foot down when culture becomes an obstacle to spiritual flourishing.
Thank you. Next question is about taqleed and maraji. Some are still confused about this. They feel that the taqleed of a maraja is not necessary. Could you please expand on that?
It's human nature to refer to experts in areas where you're not an expert. That's why when you have legal problems, you hire a lawyer. That's why, you refer to, when your car breaks down, it's a very rational practice to refer to experts when you're not the expert. And you're not an expert just because you read the Quran or you read a few books of hadith. Islamic laws from the Sunnah. I'll give you a very simple example. Just so we appreciate what our fuqaha do. When someone is on their deathbed and they're dying, for those of you who are familiar with fiqh, you know that if someone is someone is dying, you're supposed to orient their bodies towards qibla, whereby they're on their back, and if they were to sit up, they would be facing the qibla. Some ulama say that this is wajib. Others say it's ihtiyat wujubi. It's an obligatory precaution. So there are some that are very confident. You have to direct someone who's dying towards the qibla. And there are other scholars that are not as confident, and that's why they say ihtiyat wujubi. As an obligatory precaution, direct someone who's dying towards the qibla. Why that difference? I'll give you an example of a hadith that our ulama look at and they come to different conclusions. So imagine you come across a hadith. So pretend that you're a faqih and you come across a hadith that's sahih, it's authentic. You looked at the chain and you determined that everyone in this chain is reputable, reliable, righteous, sahih. And the hadith says that Rasulullah entered into a room where someone was dying. And he says, وَجِّهُوهُ إِلَى الْقِبْلَةِ حَتَّى تَسْتَقْبِلُهُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. Turn him, meaning the dying person, towards qibla, so the angels will receive him. When you read this hadith, what do you understand? Is it wajib or is it mustahab? Raise your hand if you think it's wajib from reading this hadith. I'm not going to be like Twitter, I'm going to judge. You might read this hadith and say, wajib. Rasulullah says, turn him towards the qibla, so the angels will receive it. Another faqih might read it with a different tone. Maybe Rasulullah walked in and said, وَجِهُوهُ إِلَى الْقِبْلَةِ حَتَّى تَسْتَقْبِلُهُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. If you heard the second way, you think, well, wajib or mustahab? This is one example. You know, when you open up the Risala Amaliya, you see these masail. Do you know how much work the faqih has to put in to give you this Risala Amaliya? You think, oh, there's no difference between, yajibu and ihtiyat wujubi. They have to go through all of these ahadith. And sometimes you have two hadith that are both authentic, but they're contradictory. What do you do if you have two ahadith that tell you, for example, Maghrib is sunset, and another hadith that says Maghrib is when the eastern redness disappears? What do you do? See, this is what no one wants to talk about, right? It's a lot involved in Ishtihad. It's not a game. Now, you don't need to do taqleed if you're willing to go and become Muslim. If you have such a problem with taqleed, go for 50, 60 years, go to the Hawza, study, and then you can say, in my opinion. But until then, you're not qualified to have it. It's like me sitting with Albert Einstein and saying, in my opinion, general relativity is rubbish, in my opinion. You haven't even taken elementary physics. You don't have an opinion. So we have to know our limits. And the problem is, many of us, we don't know our limits. I read a few hadith here and there, and now I want to put the marja on trial. We have to have a good rationale. We have to have respect for ulama. While you're playing Xbox in your basement when you're 20 years old, they're studying. So you shouldn't think that you're an expert if you haven't put in the work.
The next question, I think I've seen a tweet about this before. It's a close-ended question. Can a Sayyid girl or boy marry a non-Sayyid girl or boy? It's a really good question.
Now, I know this is a sensitive topic. And then, before I answer the question, no one is denying that it's an honor to be from the descendants of Rasulullah. It's an honor that your great-great-great-grandfather is Rasulullah. We have to acknowledge that. It's an honor to have the blood of Rasulullah running in your veins. But at the same time, if we want to talk about what's wajib and what's haram, there's nothing wrong with marrying your daughter off to someone who's not safe. You're not doing it haram. Now you may think it's a big deal. You may think it's a big deal. But we're talking about, is Allah going to punish you for it? Because that's what it means when we say it's haram. Allah's not going to punish you. In fact, we have imams. If you think being a sayyid is a big deal, how about being an imam? Imam, Imam Musa, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam married Hamida. Imam Ja'far Sadiq, and we identify as Ja'faris. He married a woman from North Africa. Why didn't he marry the sayyid? Or vice versa. We have women from the Ahlul Bayt who married men who are not Salih. So it's an honor to be from the progeny of the Prophet, but do not turn away people just because they're not Salih. If this was very important, Rasulullah would mention it. He would have said, if someone comes to you who's saved, don't turn them away. But Rasulullah mentioned deen and akhlaq. These are the most important things. Not every sayyid is going to be pious. We have Sa'ada in history who claim to be imams. Some of the brothers of our imams claim to be imams. So marrying your daughter to a sayyid, that doesn't mean that she's safe. Taqwa, akhlaq, deen, these are the things that
Next question is, what is your opinion about mut'ah and what makes it acceptable in our society today? Is it acceptable?
Can you repeat the question?
What is your opinion about mut'ah and what makes it acceptable in our society today?
No, again, when there is a Quranic verse about a specific topic and it's part of the sunnah of the Prophet, no one has a right to have an opinion. There are certain things that are permissible in the Sharia that might rub us the wrong way. I'll give you a simple example. If your father, God forbid, passes away, how would you feel if your mother got married 5 months later? Do you like that? If your father passed away, what would you say if your mother got married 5 months later, or 4 months and 11 days later? What's your opinion about that? Many of us, we don't like it, but it's halal. If your mother did that, you can be angry all you want. At the end of the day, she didn't disobey Allah. She waited, her iddatul wafat is finished, and she's permitted to get married. The point that I'm trying to make is, there are some things in Islam that might not be palpable to us. It might be difficult for us to digest because we don't understand the hikmah, the wisdom. In Islam, there are two types of marriages. There's permanent marriage and there's temporary marriage. They're both marriage, except one has a term limit. Now, I believe that temporary marriage can be used in a very effective way. So for example, imagine two people want to get to know each other for permanent marriage. There's no nikah between them. They're not mahram. How are they supposed to get to know each other and really be comfortable unless there is a nikah in place? Because chances are, let's be honest, if they're not mahram and they're getting to know each other for 6 months, do you think there were no lines that were crossed? Are we dealing with malaika or we're dealing with human beings? So in many cases, temporary marriage can be introduced and you can put stipulations on it. You can say, listen, there's no sexual activity. The temporary marriage has these restrictions, that are agreed upon by the wali of the girl, assuming she's a virgin. Certain limits are set, certain stipulations, and therefore they're not mahram to each other. They're mahram to each other. They can talk. as husband and wife with those restrictions. So they can get to know each other in a halal way. And if they decide that they want to get married, they change their temporary marriage into a permanent marriage. I think this is a very, very healthy way of using the temporary marriage. And by the way, whenever the topic of mut'ah is brought up, we get attacked by different sects. Oh, you Shi'as, you guys believe that prostitution is legal. That's what they say. But do you know in Sunni fiqh, see the problem is people, they don't have knowledge. They just attack. In Sunni jurisprudence, there is something called az-zawaj biniyat al-talaq. That it's permissible, according to some of the madahib, to get married to a woman with the intention of divorcing her shortly after. Now, practically, what's the difference? If you want to attack temporary marriage that is contracted for a month, what's the difference between that, someone who's being open and honest, and someone who is marrying you but has the intention of divorcing you after a month? What's the difference? Practically, it's the same. So the point is that Islam is very practical. Islam recognizes that not everyone is going to be able to get permanently married because of financial restrictions, because of circumstances. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, because Allah knows what He created. He knows that if there is no other avenue other than permanent marriage, people are going to end up destroying themselves. So Allah has allowed for another way to channel and fulfill this human need through the institution of temporary marriage. But again, I would caution people that temporary marriage, my dear brothers and sisters, should not become a lifestyle. Just because something is halal, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. Sometimes someone might be married. Islamically, you might be allowed to. But you need to keep in mind that sometimes you will make a decision that will destroy your family. Is it worth it? You have a wife, Allah blessed you with a wife. So there's no need to engage in behavior just because you want to satisfy your urges. Just because it's halal doesn't mean that it's the wise thing to do. So I think that we also have to be conscious of that. That there are a lot of things that are halal, but you also have to know your circumstances and know and be aware of the consequences of your actions.
There are a lot of questions here, so we're going to try to combine some of them because they address similar things. And clearly the purpose of this meeting is working because some of these questions are things that we normally don't hear in other places, and they're asking because we are heard about these things. So this is a question I wanted to ask, I combine with another one. If you lost faith in God, and the use of psychoactive drugs brings you closer to Him and helps you understand His existence, can you continue to use it? The fact that it's saying continue means that person is using it right. And also the other thing is that are there various levels of these drugs, like alcohol versus marijuana versus other psychoactive drugs?
There's a verse in the Quran that comes to mind where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرًا. Allah says that every person knows himself, even if he wants to make excuses. Sometimes, to say that my faith is weak, my belief in Allah is weak, but when I take these drugs, I feel more connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This sounds like waswasa of shaitan. That he's trying to make you do something, against the sharia with a religious justification. Now, if your doctor, if a qualified physician says that you need this for health reasons, then that's fine. But to use drugs because you feel that it's making you more spiritual, being high doesn't mean that you're spiritual. Let's be, Bob Marley is not a spiritual person. Sometimes you might think that you're being very philosophical, but you're just high. You're not, reaching higher levels of yaqeen. So as Allah says, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرًا. You know yourself. And sometimes, you try to fool yourself into thinking that, oh, I'm taking these drugs fi sabilillah, qurbatan ila Allah ta'ala.
Yes, similar line. This one is about hypersexuality in the society. Because we live in this type of an environment where we're constantly bombarded with sexual images and peer pressure about them. How should we strengthen ourselves Islamically and how should we?
I think the simple answer to that, and we all know that wherever you go, you walk outside in the street, you go to work, you go to school, you turn on the TV, there are sexually charged messages in everything that we see. But I think that, number one, as I mentioned in my presentation, the sexual desire is a desire that Allah created. And suppressing the sexual desire is not a long-term solution. In Islam, we don't believe that you're going to achieve nearness to Allah by ignoring these God-given desires. That we have to facilitate early marriage for our children. In the same way that you save for retirement, you put money aside, you need to also put aside money for your kids' weddings and marriage. Because it's important. Secondly, even if you're married and you have a halal outlet, you also have to keep in mind that do not put yourself in environments where you're surrounded by people who are not dressed appropriately. This idea in the Quran that's mentioned, where Allah says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. Don't approach adultery. Allah doesn't even say don't commit it. Don't even approach it. Because if you approach it, you will be tempted to commit it. So that means that we have to discipline ourselves when it comes to what we look at, what we listen to, who we interact with. We can't be too comfortable with the opposite gender. I know, he's your second cousin and you call him Alushi, but he's still not mahram, right? He's still not mahram. You can't bend the rules of the Sharia. This is why Islam has very strict rules about how we interact with the opposite gender. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen he had a habit of not initiating salam with young women. Saying salam is mustahab, right? Some of us, salam is mustahab. Salam alaikum sister, salam alaikum sister. Just passing out salams, right? Imam says he exercises caution. The Imam exercises caution in initiating salam with young women, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, because he says, I'm afraid that I might find her voice attractive. Amir al-Mu'mineen. So this is an example of the Imam not doing something mustahab, teaching us that sometimes, you do something thinking that it's mustahab, but it can lead you to what? It can lead you to haram. So if Ali ibn Abi Talib is this cautious with the opposite gender, why are you so comfortable? You have so much control over your nafs. At the end of the day, we're human beings. There is an attraction between the opposite genders. And in fact, there's even research that shows that guys and girls can't just be friends. I can even show you secular studies that have come to that conclusion. Because guys, unfortunately, they always overestimate how attractive they are. Girls are better at platonic relationships. But guys, Sheikh, did you see the way she said salam to me? It was like tajweed. Right? You have a self-aggrandized, image of yourself. So there's research to show that guys and girls can't just be friends. There has to be a formality that's at place when you're interacting with the opposite gender.
Excellent. We're really short on time, so we have time for questions, 4 to 5. Two questions. From 5 to 2. That happened real quick.
We'll do just yes or no questions?
I'll try to keep it simple. This question, I think many of us can relate to, especially the youth here who've been born and raised here. The issue with maintaining salah, daily salah. How can someone change this within themselves? Where do you begin if this is the issue you have within yourself and your connection to Allah?
So, I'll tell you from my personal experience. You know, many people might not want to admit this, but it is challenging to keep up the 5 daily prayers. You know, sometimes people are embarrassed to admit this, but you know, if you see someone pass away and they have no qada prayers, that's impressive. I'll tell you that. Because most people, you know, sometimes they fall short. They have their spiritual lows and their spiritual highs. But I think what you need to do is, you know, in the same way that if you have work early in the morning, what do? You set your alarm, right? You put it on the most annoying, irritating ringtone, and you put it away. And in fact, one of the best pieces of advice that I got from Ayatollah Bahjat, you know, who passed away almost a decade ago. You know, most of us struggle with Salatul Fajr, yes? That's, you know, it's almost like it's, no. Okay, Fajr is qada, let me get on to the next prayer. Right? We've assumed that we're just going to miss that one. Ayatollah Bahjat, what does he say? He says, pray Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha on time, and Allah will give you the tawfiq to wake up for Salatul Fajr. So putting the alarm on, having family members remind you, you know, in the same way that when you're in the gym, it's easier to work out when you have a partner, spiritually, it's also easier to do your wajibat and avoid the muharramat if you have a partner, someone who's going to remind you, who's going to send you a text. Are you awake for Fajr? You know, did you pray your Fajr? Someone who's going to give you that positive peer pressure.
So we had decided before that I will take on the controversial question.
Sure.
So this applies not just to this center, but to many other centers. And so nothing should take personally over here, because I've heard this many times. One of the biggest challenges we youth face is the elderly refuse to give up the mosque politics, like prefer to run it like mosques in Pakistan or in India. Further depriving the community of innovative programs, spending or investing the money they receive unwisely. Can you please advise on how to change the old ideologies and encourage the elderly to pave way for new and youthful leaders? At the same time, there's another related question about the women's side that not be treated well.
So before I answer the question, I think I have to mention something, and that is, it's very easy to criticize our elders and tell them, oh, they're not running the masjid properly, this and that, but at the same time, we also have to give credit where credit is due. We have to respect our elders and understand that they are the ones who planted the seeds. They're the ones who built the centers. So even when we want to criticize, we have to do it with the utmost respect and know that they are the pioneers. You know, they put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to establish these centers. So when we want to make change, we have to also do it with akhlaq. Number two, we youth, and I call myself a youth because, you know, I'm not that old. Yeah, right? We also have to step up to the plate. We're very good at complaining. We're very good at saying, oh, there's no English programs. Okay, come forward and you organize it. You step up. You make it happen. So you have to also be proactive. You can't just complain, you know. Because, you know, we're good at complaining. But have you actually called for a meeting with the board? Have you sat down with them? Have you actually given them a plan? You know, have you given them a proposal? I think if you do that, you'll be surprised at how receptive the elders will be. But if you're just criticizing, and you don't ever show up to the masjid, of course they're not going to hand over the keys to the mosque to you. You know, you have to demonstrate some responsibility. So that's what my advice would be. And I think that sometimes we get so fired up that we just want to start a coup and overthrow the masjid, let's kick the board out to the street. We have to always maintain akhlaq. We have to honor our elders, because I'll tell you something, brothers and sisters. Starting a youth program that's built on disrespecting the elders is not going to have any barakah. So that also has to be kept in mind. So you have to take the community by the reins, right? You have to come forward and put the proposals together and take initiative.
So we're pretty much out of time. There is an event right after this, which everyone is welcome to attend. I believe it's Imagines in Urdu. But I'd like to give many, many thanks to Sheikh Azhar for his eloquent responses, and of course many thanks to all those who participated by submitting questions. I did get one question that said, how can we join in this community and participate in seeking wisdom? I would like to invite the founders of Seeking Wisdom to give a quick answer for this question. If I can have Brother Ali Zaidi, Sister Miraj Haidari, and Brother Haidar Zaidi come up here. And while they do that, a salawat for the Shia and for the founders of Seeking Wisdom.
I would like to just thank everybody for joining us today. Also just want to mention something, that the actual founders are Amir Sheikh and Brother Shahid Rizvi and Mahmoud Rizvi. I just want to talk about a little bit of the background of this program. For past 5 or 6 years, I've been in touch with a lot of youth all over America actually, and we have a lot of reverts and the converts who are becoming Shia now. So we have been seeing a cultural shift from our, I'm an expat from Pakistan, so I grew up over there, then I came over here. So I have a different cultural mindset. Over here now I started meeting all the kids who grew up over here, and we started seeing a cultural shift that these kids and us, we don't really relate on a lot of these topics. So we just wanted to make sure that we come up with some program for the youth, and we do 3 things mainly. The first one is being that we want to make sure that we are relaying the right knowledge, the core knowledge and the values of Shia Islam, and that has to do with the Azadari or the Shia Islam at its core. We just want to make sure that is being relayed to this new culture that is being built in America. Second is we wanted to make sure that we are able to bridge the gap between these 2 generations, the generation that came from Pakistan or India or Iraq or any other country, the aspect really basically, right? And make sure that the youth, and then there's a bridge that we can bring in and they can bridge the gap basically. The third thing really was we want to make sure that this youth, their only problem is this right now, mainly what they tell us all the time, that they don't have enough credibility. I mean, they're not recognized by their local centers that, okay, step up and do something. If they want to do something differently, arrange a program, they don't really have that credibility right now. So what we want to do is we want to build this community where the youth also has an avenue that promotes them and supports them in order to conduct programs such as this. So this is one of the first programs that we are doing, but we will be continuing this program every 3 months, inshallah. And what we want to do is not only just a conversation like we had one today, which was very informative, but what we also want to do is hold some of these workshops where we are going to be doing some personal development a workshop, and anything other topics as well. So look out for that. I want everybody to actually take out their phones, go on Facebook and like the page, which is Seeking Wisdom, so we can keep in touch. We will be putting out a lot of material online, so the youth is involved, and we actually want to invite everybody here to join us. Just like Maulana said, me, him, we are not that old. We are still considered youth, and actually everybody else is as well. Again, I just wanted to say that we were already thinking this stuff, to do something for the youth and the community, but Mr. Amir Sheikh, Mr. Mahmoud Rizvi, and Shahid Rizvi, they actually came forward and they initiated this program, and we were able to join them as well. Now I would like to hand it over to Sister Miraj.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for coming today. And thank you, Sheikh. It was an honor to hear you. I'd like to also thank Dr. Ali Raza Muswi and Noura, who came all the way from Boston. And you did an amazing job emceeing and making this event possible. We have a raffle that was already set, and then we would like to actually call out the raffle numbers. So if whoever has the raffle tickets, they can take them out. And the raffle price is the study Quran. It has a commentary of every verse in the Quran. So we have about one being given out tonight, and let's see who the winner is. So, Salawat. Okay, the winner is, the number of the raffle ticket is 3923-975. Again, so you have to be present to actually win the raffle. So I'm going to repeat the number again. It's 3923-975. Okay. There's also 2 second rules.
Got a winner.
Thank you, Brother Ali, Sister Miraj, Brother Ali Haidar. I'd like to thank everyone who participated, the volunteers. It wouldn't have been possible without you. Thank you for inviting me to be part of your community and to be part of this lovely evening. As a community, as an ummah, I think the elders have to lead by example. So please, seek the knowledge that the youth can relate to, and the youth, you also have to be flexible to work with the elders, as well as Sheikh Azhar Nasser mentioned earlier. As Nabi Allah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one of his catchphrases was Rabbana zidna ilma. Ya Allah, please increase our knowledge. So I hope that tonight was fruitful for all of you, and that you gained something, no matter how minute. I hope that you benefited in some way. So we will be answering the rest of the questions in the conference room. If you guys are interested, Sheikh Azhar Nasser is willing to answer those questions. There is a majlis. You're more than welcome to stay for that as well. And I think that wraps up the night. Thank you all.